male feminists, they always say the right thing.
Very few cishet men are capable of genuine admiration for women.
Because you're a Hillary supporter.
Yeah, I am a Hillary supporter, and they know that.
We also love flowers. Flowers are magical.
My wife is the highlight of my day. Every time she walks through the door, my face lights up.
But when you take a closer look, things start to get really creepy.
All men who build their platform on women's issues are not to be trusted.
Especially the self-proclaimed male feminists. I think they scare me the most.
There would still be a moral imperative for us to be feminists in order to help.
Robbie Harvey is bragging to another beautiful woman about the money he's making off of your victim stories.
Can a man be a feminist?
A man can be a feminist ally, but ultimately women are feminists or feminists are women.
That's just no. Because feminism has as a central goal the liberation of everyone.
But then the ones who run around and say, you know, really push it and make that their identity and really sell themselves as male feminists.
I don't remember whether he identifies as feminist or pro-feminist, but I mean, either label fits.
That have a deep level of vulnerability, care, compassion, and tenderness.
Those are the guys I have an issue with, because like you said, they're sneaky.
Feminist men are often wolves in sheep's clothing.
Wolf in sheep's clothing.
I also have been personally victimized by the wolf in sheep's clothing or the feminist man.
I was originally going to stay anonymous with everything, but
I started having a visceral response to the man who ran the group's behavior.
He is kind of a dangerous person to be the mouthpiece for trauma-related videos that center women.
Who are we talking about? Robbie Harvey.
Robbie Harvey. Robbie Harvey. Robbie Harvey and another woman who is a victim.
The Robbie Harvey.
He is a fake. He is a fraud.
The guy's a dick.
Oh boy, do we have a dark one today, boys, because we are diving into the absolute clusterfuck that is the world of self-proclaimed male feminists and so-called allies to women.
And cis heteronormative view of what a man's identity is. It's what creates the massive entitlement problem that incels have. And the need to always avoid criticism has made for generations of men that are fragile to criticism and deeply incurious.
Oh my god, man, this guy, not only does he make some of the most condescending and slimy content that you will ever see, but he actually calls himself a men's advocate and claims to want to help men. However, every single thing that he does, from the words that he chooses, the way that he speaks about men, and the stances that he takes.
If we're going to talk about prejudice against women, then don't we have to also talk about prejudice against men? And the answer is no, we don't. Talking about a restaurant hostess with a black eye. But more grotesque than this off-color joke is his justification. And I love their company far more than I enjoy the company of men.
You can clearly tell that he is only repelling men and simply wants to pander to women.
I wanted to talk about this because I am a man who sits when I pee. Let me explain it to you fellas. Oh no, did he just say that masculinity has no value? No. I said your version of masculinity has no value.
So if male feminists truly wanted men to better themselves as they claim, then why aren't they trying their very best to actually reach those men? Because if I stepped into a room filled with women and I wanted to teach them about men's issues and get them to empathize with men, but I start off the meeting like this.
Nice to see a bunch of fat, ugly women.
This dude did not come to play. But you get my point, right? It would never work, since how you package your message is just as important as the message itself. Even female creators like Courtney Ryan.
Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Courtney Ryan, and in this video, we're gonna be talking about things that men should stop and start doing. I cannot possibly fathom that women are getting mad when you tell them, yeah, you need to take care of yourself. I would say the same thing to men. You need to take care of yourself.
Or writers like Louise Perry.
The men who were already sexually aggressive and likely to actually be, you know, Me Too perpetrators haven't changed their behavior at all. And the men who started being really careful were probably fine to begin with.
Are far more effective at reaching men, showing that a feminine approach can also work if you apply it correctly and if you're actually trying to connect with those men.
No, we don't.
And so Captain Soy over here clearly has an ulterior motive, since he deliberately manipulates stories and data in such a way to make men seem far worse, even to go as far as to make the victim sound like the bad guy, like he did in this story.
The juvenile underage father who got his babysitter pregnant and was forced to pay child support?
Do you hear how he just said that? As if some irresponsible dude got his babysitter pregnant, right? Well, in reality, it was a 12-year-old boy who got raped by a 16-year-old babysitter and is now ordered to pay her child support. That is an insane situation, and he just skips past all of that to jump straight into why it's such a good thing that the boy has to pay.
And the reason is that for decades, men have tried to commit fraud in court by claiming the conception was illegitimate. That's not misandry or matriarchy. That is the fair consequence of men's crappy behavior.
What the f is wrong with you, bro? How can you claim to be a men's advocate when this is how you tell stories about men being victims? Now, next to bullshitting his way through various stories showing a clear lack of historical accuracy, bad faith arguments, and lack of consistency by not even applying his own philosophy,
if they haven't been through it, if they haven't experienced it personally, then it doesn't exist. Ah yes, because as we all know, when a man is accused of SA, his life is effectively over.
I took an overdose in front of my own mum. It was that bad.
It was terrible. That was the worst day of my life.
But we don't have time to get into all the different ways he proves he's an idiot, because it's much more important to prove his true nature that comes out whenever a woman doesn't agree with him.
He is not an advocate or an ally to the feminist movement. He's a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Bullying these women. Eve was asking you for help to sort this situation out, and you essentially washed your hands of the situation and said, well, it wasn't me.
So the guy who can't seem to shut up about empathy and respecting a woman's feelings and her experience, and who claims to be a feminist ally, is allegedly responsible for dozens of his female followers feeling so unsafe they had to delete their TikTok, and some even had to get medical assistance.
Some of the women who have come forward to me have expressed that they have PTSD symptoms. And I can attest to that to at least some degree, because when he came for me, I was heavily pregnant at the time. And the stress of what he put me through, and his followers and his associates, the comments on my body and on my children, that was enough to give me preeclampsia.
Which has ultimately resulted in 2 women feeling unsafe within a community where one of our biggest priorities is making sure that women do feel safe.
But he didn't stop there. In other videos that people put up in support of me, he's on their channel calling me a grape apologist. A grape apologist. Someone who was victimized at 13. He has no care for women.
I mean, talk about a true snake oil salesman. So again, this guy does not give a shit about reaching men.
No, we don't.
And from the looks of things, I don't even think he actually cares about women, other than farming their adoration to feed his ego.
I like women. I want more of them to be around me.
Anyways, moving on from Captain Soy to Professor Douche. Yep, he's actually a professor. And trust me, this one is about to get fucking insane. So like I said, our next insufferable male feminist is indeed a professor, but unfortunately it's in the social studies, so it's basically a clown's diploma.
So I studied social and political thought. My comprehensive exam fields were whiteness and white supremacy and critical masculinities.
Not only is the professor even more condescending than Captain Soy,
their conversations are just the dialogue form of a LinkedIn post. Now, whether you should point out that somebody's nostalgia is wrong is one thing, but you certainly can, because nostalgia is always wrong. Or are they just like entirely self-serious and intolerable? Because that's how they sound. I just feel really sad for him.
But he also really enjoys trying to out-feminist feminists and constantly calling women that he disagrees with misogynists.
Then we're also telling those men that we would need help from that we can do this on our own.
This characterization of feminists doesn't resemble actual women so much as it does a misogynist's caricature.
She loses her value because she makes you look like an idiot and she makes herself look accessible.
If I can pull out the implied theme here, it is her impact on your reputation. In any case, it's all very thinly veiled misogyny.
And just like most male feminists, the professor is a notorious liar. Just look at what he says about the Harrison Butker situation.
Because Harrison Butker dug himself this hole a couple of months ago when he told women graduating from Benedictine College that they should forego a career and instead get married and have children.
Yeah, Butker never said that. It is such a stupid lie that you could easily verify in 2 seconds by actually watching the speech. Since this is what Butker actually said.
How many of you are sitting here now, about to cross this stage, and are thinking about all the promotions and titles you are going to get in your career? Some of you may go on to lead successful careers in the world, but I would venture to guess that the majority of you are most excited about your marriage and the children you will bring into this world.
So he never said that women should forego careers. He literally says, some of you may go on to lead successful careers. Now, if you really wanted to attack Butker's speech, believe me, there was plenty to do so, and there was no need to make up a fake argument. Now here's another lie of the professor.
So I get that a gender reveal is just an excuse to have a party.
No, he doesn't, because listen to what he actually thinks about gender reveals.
If you are organizing a gender reveal party and you are also opposed to patriarchy, white supremacy, compulsory heterosexuality, you might want to ask yourself whether it's a good idea.
This dude is insane. Look, I hate gender reveals just as much as the next guy, okay? They've gotten way out of control and people are even starting to die at them, which is crazy. But to make the connection between gender reveals and white supremacy is complete lunacy. Like, how insufferable can one man be? But hold on, because we haven't even reached peak insanity here, since the professor is about to drop some absolutely crazy shit.
There should be no minimum age to vote. Every citizen, every permanent resident for that matter, who wants to vote should be allowed to. Children already work, pay taxes, can be found criminally liable for their actions. They can procreate.
What in the fucking sneako did you just say?
They can procreate.
It is so ironic that a guy who probably thinks that Sneeko is a devil himself is now basically aligning with Sneeko's worst argument.
Do you think it's okay for anyone in their 20s, an adult, to marry a 15 or 16-year-old?
A 21-year-old, if there was a marriage where the father consented and the daughter consented and it was both good on both families and they wanted to do it, why am I going to get involved? Why should we get the government involved?
Since just like Sneeko, the professor thinks that 14 is basically 21, right?
A 14-year-old's brain isn't fully developed? Well, neither is a 21-year-old's.
My god. So this guy is arguing that people as young as 14 should be able to vote for several reasons, one being that they can also procreate.
They can procreate.
Yeah, this guy should definitely not be teaching. Anyways, moving on to our third and final freak of the day. A true hardcore male feminist who is so bad that even Captain Soy had to distance himself from him, although he did do so reluctantly and hid behind other women to do it for him.
So I did figure that eventually somebody would ask me to talk about this. Now, in terms of Robbie specifically, I had originally planned to do a video, but very quickly two things became clear. The first was that a lot of my mutuals were already making content on it, and I did not want to be speaking over them. The second is that the conversation quickly shifted to the disastrous apologies and the continued dismissive, abusive, and exploitive attitude and behaviors towards women. This ceased to be a conversation I needed to be involved in at all. All it needed from me was to shut up.
So let me get this straight. Your entire page is about showing all the different ways in which men are terrible and then shitting on those men. But when your male feminist buddy gets exposed for how terrible he is, that's when you decide to shut up. Yeah, makes perfect sense, you absolute coward. But enough about him, since it's time to discuss the worst of the worst, a guy with over 3.5 million, mostly women followers, the Robbie Harvey.
What is the worst thing your husband has ever said to you? The insecurities of a woman is something men will never understand.
Now Robbie here loves to play the tough guy in his videos and tell men to stop being awful, but to anyone who's not under his spell of bullshit, it just comes off as weak and fake.
Do you hear yourself when you talk to her, to the woman in your life? Do you hear yourself? The answer is getting men to realize that this cannot happen. Baby these boys through life. We haven't taught them how to be men.
Sure thing, Robbie. We pinky promise to do better. Now Robbie here likes to highlight all the awful things that men do in order to uplift women's voices. And so if that's your content, I'm not even gonna fault you for it. Because unlike Professor Douche and Captain Soy, Robbie is at least honest about the fact that he only wants to highlight women's voices. However, this is where the problem arises, because when you create this massive platform of scolding men for their terrible behavior of manipulating women or causing harm to women, then it's a major problem when you start engaging in that very same behavior.
I realized he used a lot of my vulnerability at the time in seeking help and validation in getting close to me in a way that he could ask me sexually explicit questions through DMs on Instagram.
And she's not the only one. There are allegedly dozens of women who have had private conversations with Robbie in which he starts out as a nice and harmless guy, but then turns the conversation sexual and starts getting really weird. such as allegedly telling a woman how good he is at giving his wife orgasms.
This is TMI, but my wife just had a good O. I'll never understand how that feels for her. No man will, but whatever. I enjoy BJs, and I don't get them by going off late at night to do what I want. And not only that, he's talking about BJs with another woman. And when she sent me these screenshots, she told me she would, she has been feeling so f***ed up over this. This shows Robbie's real motive, okay? Where do you live? She responds, he says, I'm gonna be in New York in a few weeks and I was going to make you meet up if you were close.
And he proceeds to complain about how men are disrespecting their marriages.
I don't care if you're having these thoughts. You have two choices, right or wrong. Choose the right way.
Yep, this dude is absolutely insane. But to make the hypocrisy complete, he allegedly also talked to this woman about sex, asking her if she thinks about him during sex with her husband, and allegedly telling her that she should cheat on her husband.
I used to be a strong advocate for him. I went against other creators at times and argued for him that he was a great person. He had great intentions. I was blindly naive and deceived.
Now, as you guys know, I'm always highly skeptical when people upload screenshots of DMs, since you can easily fake those. However, Robbie tried to cover his tracks in such a clumsy way that it pretty much confirms some of these stories. So looking at the volume of independent women all alleging the same thing, and even signing their names to it by recording themselves on video, makes the whole thing seems very credible and very bad. But the thing that really sold it to me that Robbie Harvey is not who he pretends to be is actually Robbie Harvey himself. Because listen to how he defends himself when he gets attacked by his own fans after they accuse him of using his wife's cancer for views.
And this time it's from a woman. You're using your wife for views. It's like saying the same thing that I'm choosing for my wife's body to be mutilated.
Oh my god. Dude, I don't even know his wife, but I would never refer to her body as being mutilated. I mean, come on, even if she thinks that, or if she even says that, I would never as a husband refer to my wife's body as being mutilated due to the cancer. That is crazy. But Robbie keeps making mistakes like these because he doesn't believe the things that he says, and he's not the person that he pretends to be.
More women reached out. Just theme of Robbie denying accountability is consistent, and he also talks about how much money he makes a lot.
Now in the month of June, I've already made $20,000, $3,000 in one day. In case this hasn't hit you yet, Robbie Harvey is bragging to another beautiful woman in his messages about the money he's making off of your victim stories.
However, the truly crazy part about all of these male feminists and their communities is that every single time a woman comes forward with these allegations, she gets ruthlessly attacked by that same community.
And I'd be like, I'm not going to say anything because I've been trounced already by this person.
So to the Robbie Harvey stans that have already been mass reporting my account, why?
And then you get comments like this. That right there is why women are afraid to speak out. Because imagine just doing that and having that many people come up against you.
The irony here is just incredible, because these communities are supposedly about validating a woman's experience and making sure she gets heard. But as soon as a woman says something that they don't like, they dox her, bully her, and chase her off the platform. So you know what? I wish all of these male feminists nothing but the best. May you all live long and prosperous life, roam free to do your worst, and give your followers absolute hell with all the creepy and weird shit you want to give them. Because clearly, you guys and the people that follow you do not give a shit about other women. Peace.
I thought it was a horrible decision. I think women should have the right to decide what happens with their bodies.